Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So the first thing that we sort of start with today is, I think it's Instagram. I formatted it pretty much the same way that all of our agendas have been formatted so far. So for Instagram, there are two things that we are really kind of struggling with right now. Is our open call. So for Meet Our Members, I think what we might have to do, and Kay and I have both talked about this before, is more like a direct contact approach where we're directly contacting people that are considered members currently. We both acknowledge that like aligning yourself so visibly with the organization might feel too soon or something like that, especially since we're like a little baby organization, and we don't have that like long track record. But I also am concerned that if Meet Our Members keeps kind of falling off, that it's going to disappear as programming, and that programming is our first thing that we started doing, and then it's also the thing that I think most directly reflects our mission statement of like actively pursuing mutual aid for our members and helping, you know, introduce them into the community regardless of what level of printmaking they're at. So there's that. I think we need to kind of start directly interacting with people. Kay, did I forget anything about that?
No, I was just gonna piggyback and say, I guess what I'd really love is if it could be like an all hands on deck kind of thing, where if you know someone that you think would be, you know, fantastic for it, and we're going to get into takeovers as well in a minute, and this also applies for takeovers, but you know, if you have someone in undergrad, especially also that happens to be a member, like go ahead and or invite them to be a member. With what happened last week, I feel like there was sort of this like, I don't know, it felt sort of like not bashing necessarily, but a lowering of like freshman art making, or even, you know, like whether it's freshman or sophomore, undergrad, it's like we value all of that. And, you know, we would love to be like featuring those folks as well. And so if I personally don't have a lot of connections right now at my institution to undergrads and graduate students, I work in the foundations program, not the print program. So, you know, if you have print friends or, you know, folks that you could reach out directly to, that'd be fantastic. And I did reach out to someone yesterday, and they've agreed to do a takeover, and she's awesome and a fantastic educator. So I guess long-winded way of saying, if you know folks, let's just reach out to them directly, because our strength is that we all do have these networks. And I think that's the main way that we're going to get people involved, is through word of mouth at this point. If that sounds like something that is doable, awesome. If it doesn't, it's also no worries. I know everyone is like very swamped, especially with your own areas.
And can we just reiterate real quick who classifies as being a part of print? Because I remember we were very specific that it was vague for a lot of people could participate, but if you could just name a few, just so I have an idea of who to try and contact, please and thank you.
So from what I think I understand from your question, are you asking if we are like what we mean by involved in print, or are you asking like what we mean by people who are eligible for the different calls?
A little bit of both, mainly in like involved in print, so I know who to reach out to, because I know for a lot of calls it's like membership is if they are a member, that is best, but like it's okay if they're not fully so more so like what we mean by print.
Okay,
like involvement in print.
So from my understanding of it, we really are like saying print at any level. So there are a lot of people that are in our organization, and I'm going to go specifically with like the people that we know from Discord introductions, that are bakers professionally, but they're also printmakers because they're involved. They feel that they're involved in print. Then there are also like print curators, like I think that Miranda is a print curator, Miranda Metcalf, or a print historian. I can't remember which, but I think that those kinds of multifaceted interactions with the print community are really important and integral. So if you're a student studying print, if you're somebody who has a primary job but also does printmaking, you know, if you're a person who works at a professional screen printing industry, like if you're working at NorCal screen printing, right? That is also someone that I would think, you know, as an individual, we would definitely reach out to. The one kind of no from us right now is anybody who's an organization, just because coordinating with organizations right now feels, I'm going to use the word claustrophobic, but that's not quite what I mean. It feels a little bit complicated, and it comes with a lot of like political weight in that kind of decision. And we are more about the individual and the member and individual experiences and the intersections of those individual experiences than we are about other groups. So for instance, if we were to, oh, I can't remember their name right now, so this is going to be a terrible example, but if we were to go with like Black Box Press, there we go, got it. If we were going to go with Black Box Press, we would actually ask Delita Martin, not Black Box Press, and we would try to make that distinction, you know, because that's more of the direction that we want to go in, at least I think for the first year until we're officially incorporated, officially established, and we have more people, more eyes involved in reaching out, because right now it's just the 5 of us, including Stephanie, who are kind of directing this. And I feel like it would be better if there were more checks and balances at play when we start talking about more political moves like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for meet our members, they need to meet the requirements of being a member. But we do have our list of active members right now. So that does help us. We can, you know, say, because there are people on that list that I don't personally know, but I know that Ruben knows. And then there are people that I don't personally know, but that Kay knows, and same with Olivia and same with Stephanie. So it might be a matter of just checking and seeing, you know, who we know or have worked with before that we feel comfortable reaching out to. And there are probably a lot of reasons why we might not want to do meet our members. Like for instance, Ed, who did the last one, they said that they were very much like busy, but they did want to do one. They just had been kind of putting it off. And I also think that's kind of the catch-22 with a rolling open call is like, oh, well, I can do this, you know, in the summer. And I'm wondering if we might see an uptick in applications when summer hits too. So for now, I think it's probably trying to build out until we get there, until it has more of a reputation and more of a consistency. And then for takeovers, I guess that's a good time to kind of transition to what we're hoping for takeovers. So these have become a lot more invitational as well. Part of it is because like a lot of people, I mean, I know I've heard it personally. I know a lot of us have heard it personally. They're kind of keeping an eye on us to see where we go and what we do. And so I think, and I understand that too, because the takeover is more of an investment of your time and your identity, and we're not able to compensate people for that because we don't even have a bank account to compensate them from. So, and we've already had the conversation about like, we'll compensate you in exposure. Like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. But at the same time, we kind of are having our hand forced there. For the time being, hopefully in the future, there will come with some kind of additional thing. But I think right now it's a matter of reaching out directly, really emphasizing the fact that like you don't have to align yourself with any of these diversity holidays. You don't have to align yourself with anything specific. It's just about whether or not that time works best for you and whether that's the time you feel comfortable posting within. So we do have 2 people for March now, including, I might pronounce their name wrong, but Anna, right? Yeah, Anna, and then also Emily Leitner. So we have those 2 people. Emily has expressly asked to be associated with Women's History Month, so we'll kind of talk Kay and I will talk about that more when we actually talk about their promotion. We'll mention Women's History Month, but for people who don't want to be directly involved, we'll just give their regular bio, and that'll be what we do. I do like that we're doing this kind of self-electively. We did add a question to the form for anybody who does apply that way on whether or not they would like to align themselves with those diversity holidays. And that is how I learned that Emily would like to be. And we've also been able to, it like gives the full month option. So they can say, I'd like to do this in January, February, March, etc. That way we have like a month of preference and we can build out into the future. So I think the hope right now is for us to get at least 6 months scheduled out, just because it's, you know, when we get towards the end of the month, it's a lot more difficult to just reach out to people and be like, you know, we need help with that. And also there's no reason we can't have these pre-scheduled. They don't need to wait until the end of the month. Like we could literally today get the next 6 months scheduled out, you know, theoretically it would be possible, and that wouldn't really impact anything else. It would actually make things a little bit easier for us as well. So we're hoping that we'll have, you know, a group of people that reflect our mission statement, but we're also aware that, you know, it's self-elective. It's also going to be people who have the time during a pandemic to sit down and, you know, promote their own work or promote their own voice through this. It's also, we know that time is a luxury, but also, you know, time, unfortunately, equals money in this situation. So it also equals stability, and a lot of people don't have that right now. So we will try to reach out to everybody that we can and everyone that we think of just off the top of our heads. I personally would like to avoid just talking to established people or people with affiliations to other organizations. It's all right to talk to 1 or 2 people in that situation, but I would greatly prefer to have the Instagram work as a method of, I don't know how to phrase it, but a method of elevation more than just kind of sitting in an echo chamber, you know? And so for last month, like Cam, I personally reached out to Cam because I knew that he was working on a bunch of different projects at the same time. And so that, because I knew him, I was like, oh, this is good timing. Maybe you would like to do this. But then I also, like, James Rose is more established and later in his career, but he also only recently got an Instagram relatively. And so I was like, hey, James, would you like to, you know? So I think thinking about things like that, thinking about who this could benefit, I guess, because that really is the purpose of the program. And trying not to be just like patronizing with it also. I think it's really important that everybody's elevated at the same level in the same capacity. And also understanding when people have any kind of qualms with the way that we're approaching them, because it's very probable that, you know, we all have our own biases. I mean, we exposed a couple of our own biases in February, which was really great. So, you know, if anything comes up that's possibly going to like improve the program in that way, I think both of us would love to hear about it, so we can think about like how to reformat it and make it work better and better and better as time goes on. But I think that's the most about Instagram that we have. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about that comment that was left during our last takeover. But other than that, there's nothing really official we can do without putting it up to a vote for the membership. So we will have to start working on that next section of the bylaws soon, the social media section. So that is something to kind of bear in mind as we go on. But that's it for Instagram, unless Kay, do you know of anything else that we need to talk about that I've forgotten?
No, we covered it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Oh, actually, we're doing the Rise and Pull features, but they, I think, conclude today.
This Saturday they concluded, and yeah, basically I'd like to do one more post that says like, thanks so much. And we got some images from Joe Lupo. Very grateful to him for taking those images. I just have to go through and edit them. I was supposed to do that like 2 weeks ago and I didn't, so I'm sorry, but I will do that this week. And once I have them edited, we can put them up. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, because I think we're going to talk about Rise and Pool later anyway. Let me look at the agenda real quick. Rise and Pool is actually, we can segue. Perfect. Do we know when Rise and Pool is ending, like when Joe plans to take it down? I looked in the emails and I couldn't find like an end date. So if anybody knows, that'd be awesome. Just so we can
off the top of, oh, sorry. I was gonna say off the top of my head, I wanted to say that it was only supposed to be a month long, but I do know because of weather and some other things going on, it got put up a little late. So maybe it might go, so I'll reach out to him and I'll ask him where we're going from here, like from today onward, like when the show is ending, how I like to go about all of that. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there was like, most people I don't think are concerned about it. They're just really excited to, have their work up and then to have it shown on Instagram as well. There was just like a few people I think that were wondering about when it would come down. They've been curious about a lot of things. Actually, they sort of expected us to have this, this like press release and just this really big shebang, sort of like gallery style, or like very established organization kind of thing where you make this giant deal about it and there's going to be like professional photos and all this stuff. And it's like, we're a group of volunteers. I'm really sorry. We don't, and none of us live there. And Joe teaches full time. And like, I'm really sorry, but.
It's also just glass cases, which I think, and I know Joe expressed that he was concerned about like the way it was marketed isn't the right word, but like he was afraid that people were going to think it was like a full blown exhibition. So yeah, maybe in the going forward, we just need to be more precise in our language about like what, I mean, and I know we did say that in the call, but maybe just in the plainest language so there's no room for interpretation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we maintain a lot of redundancy with that, because I think, for better or for worse, people tend to skim depending on what's going on in their personal lives. Like, things are complicated right now, but they're always complicated. Life is being lived all the time. So it's good to have those redundancies and keep saying, okay, yes, this is how the show will be put up. This is when the show will come up. This is when the show will come down. So I think, and I know the situation that we were in was a little bit more informal, but I do think in the future, trying to make it a little bit more formal, or at least reiterating multiple times, this is a very informal show, et cetera, will really help reinforce that.
And then the other thing we needed to discuss with Rise and Pool was on the agenda, crumpled arrival. Is that Heather's work? Right? Okay. Has anyone reached out?
Yes.
To
so I did. Hold on. I'm trying to begin at the beginning. So I reached out to Heather. Well, first Joe reached out to us. I reached back out to Joe and said, here are the things, but in the meantime, if it's hangable, please hang it. And so he did end up hanging it. And then I contacted Heather and said, this is the situation. I sent her images as well. What would you like us to do? And she said, well, if you feel comfortable doing this, then feel free to. And she also suggested maybe spraying it and ironing it a bit. And I let Joe know that as well, but I think Joe felt a little bit uncomfortable doing that. And so I think it will probably just return to them slightly damaged. I think either way, it would still remain slightly damaged, but I have let both parties know about that. I just wanted to let everyone know that that has been addressed and kind of where we're at on that in case another email comes in when the work does return. And then all those emails are also saved in the email in case for some reason I can't get back into the dialogue. Okay. But yeah, that's just the one thing. And then they all should know that Joe will be paying for return shipping for anybody who didn't send a return shipping label with them. But I don't know, should I send out a reminder, keeping in mind that kind of redundancy, like don't send us any money. Okay, so I'll do that then. And then Olivia, with that, I think I will wait to send that until you've heard back from Joe, so I can include those kinds of dates and things like that, like when you should expect it to be shipped by, et cetera, et cetera. That way they have a timeline as well, especially
Okay,
since
sounds
USPS is doing its own thing right now.
Yeah. Okay. I will send him out that email today. I don't know if he'll respond today since it's Sunday, but as soon as I hear back, I'll forward it. I'll let you guys know.
For future exhibitions, should we probably go ahead and have some kind of like release form that participants sign?
Yeah,
That's a good idea. Yeah.
It's one of those like extra layer things that like for me personally, like when I'm sending work to an exhibition, knowing that I have sort of signed this form, and it's like this extra layer of responsibility that I suddenly have to like carefully and professionally like package up my work. You know, just like, I don't know, it reinforces my own internal anxiety about shipping work. So yeah.
Well, but that would also be good because I know like Kay has a few opportunities that they've told us about that it may be coming up in the future. And as the guild kind of grows, it might become more and more official shows. And so it's a good idea to have that foundation already intact. And then also we did end up writing a press release and sending it to Joe in case he did have somewhere to send it. I haven't heard back from Joe on that. I don't know if he did send it out anywhere. But also I don't know if the university is even open to like visitors, you know what I mean?
I can check the newsletter, the like WVU newsletter to see if a press release got put out.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Because that's the only place I could think of, because I know he used to have a blog where he would like update about what his students are doing and what he's doing. So it might be there also. I can check multiple places.
That would be great. Thank you. And then press releases are pretty standard for most shows. So now that we have one, it'll just be kind of going back into it every time we have an additional exhibition of some kind. But yeah. Okay. Is there anything else about Rise and Pull that anyone can think of? Okay, perfect. So then the next team is mailing, and Stephanie is not here, and I think mailing is Stephanie and Ruben, right?
Yeah, I don't really know where Stephanie was at with MailChimp, just because that was more of Stephanie's realm. So I haven't looked into it at all, so I don't know. But regarding newsletters, I mean, since you've kind of continued to be sending them out, what are some, now that you've kind of been continuing doing it, like what's some feedback from you about that process that maybe like we could revamp or think about? Yeah.
So one thing is partly like design based, and Stephanie does know about this as well, but I know Olivia is also a secondary, so I think Olivia probably knows too. But trying to design it out, trying to design it out to emphasize readability and like scannability so that it's easy for people to go, okay, well, what I'm looking for right now is open calls, or what I'm looking for right now is like actual news. I'd like to see the YouTube video, etc. I will say one thing, I enjoy doing the newsletter because I get replies pretty consistently about one thing or another in the newsletter. It makes people feel like, oh, since you sent me an email, let me ask you a question. And that's really, really nice. But I also think we might be getting fewer respondents for like timed things like votes, because I'm only saying something about it in the newsletter. And I know we talked a little bit about making like actual calendar notifications for that. And I think that that might help, but I also know that a lot of people said no to those calendar invitations. So what we might do instead is just, I might ask the mailing list to send reminder emails on certain dates. Does that sound manageable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. And then those would be for things like specifically voting, because I would really like to have more feedback on voting. I know bylaws are very dry, and you know, we've been doing them for what feels like forever to a lot of people. But I really, really hope that we get more respondents if we give people more like, hey, remember this, like, do it, please. Especially on the kind of drafting moments, because the more input we get on those drafts, I think the better the actual bylaws will be, and the better the structure of the organization will be. Yeah.
Well, and I think our approach to being so member focused, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. We come off maybe like as like board people writing this, like very needy, right? We need them to know and we need them to participate. But it's also because we are kind of a different organization. Usually people, when they join like an organization, they're like, okay, well, I'll let somebody else take care of that. You know, like I'm going to let them, that's their job. But it's like actually, and that's a weird thing, you know, with this organization, is that it is so, you know, member focused, member centric. So I guess maybe one thing that I'm kind of thinking about is if we're getting fewer responses on the bylaws votes, especially, should we finish them all and then send one really long one, as opposed to like one for each section? Like, are we causing like fatigue with the number of votes that we're doing? You know, and that may be why people are kind of like dropping off, you know, and then so then we just send one really long one.
I could see the benefit to that for sure. I think my biggest concern with that is, actually, let me think a little bit more before I answer you. What if we split the difference between the two approaches? And because I feel like the different functions needed to be separated in that way, because we're doing something very, very different. We don't have presidencies, we don't have secretary, we don't have that conventional structure. And so having that kind of explicitly stated, independent of one another, I think is important. But as we've gotten to, I think we're now on teams, I think our next section, if I'm not wrong, is members, which I think maybe should be its own thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's going to be our supplementary stuff. And so what we may do is just lump all of our supplementary stuff together. That might feel like a really big document because it is going to entail like social media presence. It's going to entail the code of conduct, very likely. But at the same time, maybe that's the time to do it.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a good question. And maybe we should get more like minds kind of working on it, like the Incorporation team as well, asking them, you know, what their experience has been, because they might be hearing from their individual friends as well, or colleagues. So I think, yeah, because I agree with you, it probably is the redundancy, it's the, but it's also, there's a lot going on right now. And it kind of, it's weird that the pandemic involved us all not spending as much time together, and yet made it harder to perform those kinds of duties that we would normally have, because we'd have the physical reminders of other people, you know, and we don't have those anymore. We just have virtual, you know, aspects to our lives that don't feel real. So a lot of those kinds of, I'm kind of going off into a philosophical rant, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I do think, you know, it might help to kind of lump some of that information in together. What do you think, Kay?
Yeah, I feel like I have a question first. At the very end, okay, I'm putting the question before I even talk about this thing. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes whenever I go into an incorporation meeting, so much time has passed that I have to like remind myself by looking back at the structure, like what we wrote for the other bits. So I'm not opposed to like people looking at things from, you know, the entire structure, looking at it all together. So I think breaking it up is, I think that, you know, what the conclusion I just came to, I think makes total sense. But maybe at the end, I'd like to suggest and poll y'all and see if maybe at the very end, we just lump it all together. We give it to people, give them time to look at it, because a lot of it is going to make so much more sense whenever it's all written out, and they'll be able to give really good, helpful feedback, you know, that we can actually implement because they can see it all together. So I just wanted to like mention that and maybe suggest that we do both in a way. We just do one before the other.
Yeah, and hang on, I wanted to go back to the agenda just to make sure, because I know incorporation is coming, actually incorporation is next. And that's kind of why this has been a little bit on my mind. And I'm also just like immediately I was kind of thinking about the necessity for like code of conduct to be like coming up given the events that happened during like Cam's takeover. And so it's like, it's really, that's kind of the main thing that's been like on my mind. Yeah, so I think it's going to be great too, because it'll also make more sense, because then we'll, yeah, everything like it all lives in our head. Like we know what's going on, but you know, not everyone else may know that. So.
Yeah, and if they wanted to try and have that continuity right now, they'd have to go to every different poll that we've given them, and all of those are closed. So,
yeah.
And as we have learned, Google does not let you read the things that are closed unless you give them your email, and we'd like to keep these votes anonymous. So, yeah. So yeah.
Well, before we move to incorporation, I wanted to show maybe like for design purposes, and maybe this is more than a newsletter format for email that we could think about, but our school just had a big, KCAI just had a really big design revamp, and they've been putting out these really kind of, I actually don't mind the design, and it makes a lot of sense to me, like the way they've sort of figured it all out. And the emails are pretty easy to read. They come out like kind of once a month, but I thought I would share it really quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. So you would get the email and it comes in like a kind of a big graphic, and then they have everything like sectioned off. And then so like, I don't know if we want to do something similar with like images to like kind of break it up, but, and then they have like the upcoming events section. So.
That looks great to me. Yeah, that's sort of how like I envision it being eventually. Yeah, I have an example that I could show, or I'll just take screenshots and send it to y'all later. But the studio department at my school does something similar, and it's awesome. And it's like people can submit things, and it's just the readability is fantastic, and it's engaging because of the images and because of the bold text. So yeah, I think that would be really awesome at some point to do.
Yeah, if you would please send those. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Olivia.
No, you're good. You're good. Finish your thought.
No.
Okay, I think we're gonna say the same thing, honestly. I was just gonna say it'll be helpful from a design standpoint to have visuals of like what we're thinking. So if we could start a kind of like mood board of sorts, or like a folder of like what you guys are thinking, I think that'll be a lot easier for design to piece something together.
So the one thing that Stephanie did request was that we put this stuff on Discord so that it's all in one place. So what I could do is create a new channel, and we could essentially start putting those up there. Would that be kind of a good way to organize it, I guess, so that it's easy for us to all access, for us to all just kind of be like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Because that's also kind of the sectioning out that I was hoping for, visually at least.
I feel like my response is going to be different for other people. I personally find Discord to be too much. it feels like there's 1,000 like little folders with a lot going on in each of them, and I get super overwhelmed and I end up looking at nothing.
Jamboard, which is a Google service, and Jamboard.
Jamboard, yes, I have used that one. I do kind of like that, but then there is the issue of another thing that you have to go looking for it. So like I understand wanting to put everything in Discord, and it seems like most people like it. So that's why I was trying to like caveat it by saying like, I'm just not a fan of Discord. But if that's what works best for most people, that is fine.
Well, I know that Stephanie is trying to put together a meeting for the design volunteers. There we go. I know that that's what they're trying to do right now. And so I wonder if that might be something that, Olivia, if you make it to that meeting, you could bring up is like, do we want to keep using Discord as our way as a team to coordinate? Because it could be, I mean, it's okay if it's up to them, you know. I know like Tuan previously has done a lot of stuff on Discord, but then for a while was like really busy. So I don't know. Maybe it's something that we should leave up to that individual team.
That's a really good point too. Yeah, I think they should be able to decide.
Yeah. Yeah, I've used Jamboard and I do like it.
Yeah, I put in the chat that I really like the idea of Jamboard because we're already using Google Drive so much that it just feels sort of seamless and more intuitive to me. I like Discord a lot, but it does feel, it's just not as active yet. Like we're having to cultivate that. And I think we are, and it's working, but for the sake of, or just, you know, with consideration that it really is mainly 5 of us that are like working on this and doing that, maybe we stick with Google Drive and then we move to Discord, or we take suggestions via Discord and we upload it to the Drive just so that we really know what's going on. I definitely miss stuff in Discord pretty frequently. Like I try to hop on there every day and I still end up missing things. So just a suggestion. But after we hear from Steph about what they want to do, maybe that we could make a decision after that.
Yeah, same. I'm in the same boat with UK. Sometimes I just miss things. And I think like ideally, I look at constantly the artprof.org Discord for like the way that things like kind of communicate through. Yeah, and then there's Slack as well, good for teams. You know, so I see maybe I think like once our membership gets a little more booming, it'll kind of self-moderate itself. It'll just be like a communication space, community space, essentially. Right now, though, we're using it really heavily for like our own sort of productivity and communication to get things going because we're doing so much. So yeah, I definitely can see, Olivia, like how it would be super overwhelming. And at times like it overwhelms me too. And my thing when I get overwhelmed, I just sort of like check out. Like,
yeah, that's me as well. I do also want to pose to us, this is slightly off topic, but slightly on. I know Clubhouse is a semi-new format and people are still trying to figure out, and I'm currently on it, but it's just it's a social media place or like platform where there's kind of like people who are facilitating discussions, and that's kind of like what the whole thing is. And you can sit in on discussions and have people like listen to it. So that might also be a space we could utilize alongside Discord or instead of Discord, depending on how people are feeling about it. We can poll them later, where you can have open conversations. And because it's like, there's people who are on the stage and those are the people who are having the conversation get to talk. And then there's an audience who is listening. But you can raise your hand and be brought up onto the stage to say things. So that also could be something that we could look into potentially in the future. So I wanted to pose that and bring it up. So
I'm going to look into that. I haven't heard of it. So I'll definitely wrote it down. I'm going to look into it.
I just posted a PR link about it.
It's semi-new. I want to say like maybe the end of 2020 or the top of 2021. So yeah.
Yeah, this says this article just came out last month, or like this month, like earlier this month in February. Wow.
It's basically March already. You know, it feels like March.
I know. Yeah, it's my mind's already in March. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, cool. So I
Does
guess
that kind of
that's something we
cover?
can-
Does that cover mailing list?
Yeah, I think I don't know if y'all have looked at the newsletters because you probably know the majority of the things going on, but I do. The main thing for me is formatting it so it's readable, and then I feel like I'm getting most of the things that are going on. You know, most of the activities that are happening. But I do know I kind of tend to ask like day of, and I don't have a steady day or time of day that I post just because a lot of our meetings are on the weekends, and then it's like, okay, let me give this a little bit of time, or we're working on things towards the beginning of the week, so it's like, well, do I put that in the newsletter, or you know, do I just say we're working towards it, or you know, we did slow down a little bit though, so that hasn't become that much of an issue lately, so. I guess if it becomes an issue again, I may bring it up, but that's about it. Yeah. Are there any additional plans and mailing lists that you're aware of, Ruben?
No.
Cool. Okay, so the next is incorporation. So I know the next meeting is going to be to revise those two sections, that one that has been voted on, and then teams which have been drafted, but I think it was Kay expressed an interest in kind of revisiting them to make sure that they're making sense. And I don't remember the other part of it, but just to kind of revisit them before we put them into an actual Google vote.
Yeah, it was a situation where like in the 1 2-hour meeting that we had, we actually wrote the whole thing out. And I think there was maybe like one section that maybe needed to like be really looked at carefully, but it was one of those things where it was like, it was like, we kind of just felt like it came about too fast, and we were like, we just want to make sure that like maybe, because I know you weren't there either, so it was like one of those things where maybe it's like a new group of people and we like wrote it really quickly without something in mind. So yeah, we just love like having another set of eyes.
Yeah, it was almost like too good to be true. It was
Yeah.
like no way that it just didn't feel ready. It's like, how could it be? It's like, and I think
Yeah.
it was compensation, I believe, is where we definitely need more like eyes on it. So yeah, just even if the meeting is like an hour work session instead of 2 hours, or if you book 2 when you only work 1, just more people just to look at it and make sure that we covered everything and that it's fair and it makes sense and it's thinking about the whole org, not just, you know, the micro.
Well, and we'll also be bringing up the issues we talked about earlier with having more people engaged and how we plan, like kind of creating more of a schedule so that it's scheduled out more clearly, so that we're not constantly chunking everything after this point. And I also know, like I listened to the team meeting, and it was very like streamlined and effective, but I also think a lot of that was because we are basing most of these off of what it's checks and balances, you know. So it's now that we have 2 huge roles defined, the third role is much easier to define because it's like, oh yeah, this role is going to take on these other things, you know. But yeah, I definitely understand wanting to go back to that and kind of looking at it, double checking it before it goes out on a Google form. And then for the officers section of the bylaws, we need to just kind of read through the votes that were collected and then revise. And then I think that is a good meeting, since it should theoretically be shorter. That is a good meeting for us to just kind of go through and say, okay, we've got these revisions done. Now we have this scheduled out, and that'll also help me to schedule out like the deadlines, because I do need the input from like multiple people, since this year's spring break is like the Wild West, and some people aren't having it and some people are, and I hate to schedule a vote during a spring break, you know. And we'll also have to decide if we want to run 2 votes at the same time, because that's unusual for us. But maybe it's not a bad thing. So those are just things that we can kind of talk with that group about. The next big step is I would like to go ahead and look into an EIN, an employer ID number, so that we can open a bank account. I don't remember the process because my brain is asleep, but also because we went through it last year towards the end. So I'll have to look back into that. But I do know we can do that before the articles of incorporation are fully filed, from what I understand. So we should be able to go ahead and fill out that form. We will have to pay to apply for that form. So that'll also be something we can talk about at that next meeting, where it's like, how should we come up with that money? Should it be like donations collected from the guild itself? Should it be something put forward by the membership, or something put forward by, you know, what do we want to do with that? And then part of the reason why I want to do that is I want to start fundraising for more events, especially as the world is slowly starting to open back up. But I also want to fundraise a little bit more for like the ability to look into like mutual aid funds and things like that as well. I would really like to be able to participate in that flow of revenue for people who need it. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to kind of elaborate on there. Okay, but
How much does it cost for that form?
I can't remember. I know the total cost was around, like, depending on if you employ people to look over your forms for you, it's somewhere around like a couple $100. But that form itself is probably, I think the most expensive individual form was like $40. So let me actually look, because I think I have it bookmarked. Be smart for me to have it bookmarked, wouldn't it?
I would have no problem with donating some funds into that.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
me too, for sure.
So here's the, if I share my screen.
Should let you, your co-host.
Yeah. Oops. Hello. Okay. All right. So here they are. So the articles of incorporation for a nonprofit are $60. Amendment for a nonprofit. Okay. None of these are the form that I'm talking about. So hold on. So I believe it's the tax exempt status information that we might have to file in addition to another form. I wonder if it's not on here. Solution, not dissolving. It'd be wild if we were like,
I think I wrote down all of them. So let me go through my notes real quick and see if I remember the name of it and the price.
Please do. I'm going to open this real quick as well. Here we go. This tells us the forms that we need. Okay, so it is the federal tax exemptions that we're going to have to file, and that's form N14. And the above forms link. There's no form link above there. I'm going to open it again. We'll see if we can find N14. Okay, yeah, so it is the tax exempt status information that we would need to file, and that one is free. After that, the most expensive will be the articles of incorporation for the nonprofit, and then articles of amendment will be anytime we need to make changes. So theoretically,
there's also,
it could just cost. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I also have written down articles of restatement, but that would probably be later, and that's $10 or $25. Because I have articles of incorporation for nonprofit 60, articles of amendment 25, articles of restatement 10 or 25. Of course, I didn't write what that is.
The articles of restatement is right here. That would be if we were to restate those. I think we have to do that annually.
Okay.
Just to say, yeah, we're still working in this vein. This is still how we're performing. We're following the same articles of incorporation. It consolidates all your amendments as it says into a new article of incorporation. So I do believe, and we're not merging, so as far as the forms themselves go, it should be theoretically free. The main problem for us is we need to have a lawyer look over our article to make sure that we're not just getting rejected offhand because something in our articles of incorporation is not legal in the state of North Carolina. And also to make sure that we're advocating for something feasible based on the laws of North Carolina, so that we're not just throwing $60 in the trash when we first file our articles of incorporation, because they can reject it. So the legal counsel, I think, is going to be the biggest thing, and then after that, it's having an accountant would be really important. But I'm hoping the way that can shake out is that we will be able to get our tax ID, open a bank account, apply for grant funding for nonprofits, use that application money to hire a lawyer to read through the articles of incorporation before we file them, and then file them. That's my hope. But logistically, we have to double check, and I do know Ani would be very helpful in that situation because of the parents being accountants. And also, I do know that she has taken on a lot of this research as well, which has been really helpful to me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But so that's going to be the main thing. This is a 501(c)(3), yes. Sorry, Jennifer, I didn't see your comment. Yeah, it depends on the state how much it costs. The biggest overhead cost for us is having legal counsel, which has been emphasized very strongly everywhere that we've looked. They're like, you really want to have somebody look over this before you file it. So, and then having somebody help us with our taxes annually.
There might be organizations in North Carolina that can help us with that. In Texas, there's TALA, and it's a resource for Texas artists to get pro bono lawyer help and things like that, because it's hard to come by. And it's basically a bunch of lawyers and attorneys, legal counsel people, they volunteer their time, and the organization pairs you with them, and they'll look at your stuff. They're reliable. It's not just I think there might be a concern about well, if we pay for it, then we know it's going to be solid. But if it's a reputable organization, then it should be solid. But I don't know if anyone's looked into that in North Carolina yet, but it might be worth it, because that could also be, an option. So we don't have to put forth any funding for that.
Ooh, what is this?
Yeah, so thank you for sending that.
Ooh,
Jennifer.
wow.
And in addition to what Jennifer just sent through the chat, I know that Ani has also sent me some resources on that specific to North Carolina. But when I looked into them, there was something very specific about them that I can't remember at this time, where we kind of were outside of their purview. And I was like, okay, I don't know if we count in this situation. The main problem we've been having lately is finding somebody who specifically does nonprofit law. That has been bizarrely difficult, because we've had a couple of conversations with lawyers themselves, but most of the lawyers that we know, I have a sister who works in the court system. Every lawyer she knows is a legal, specifically criminal law attorney. And they don't do nonprofit law. They wouldn't really be able to advise us in this situation. So I think maybe the links that Jennifer just sent would actually be really helpful, because it's specifically addressing the arts, and most arts are nonprofit. But that also might be an assumption on my part. I'm not sure. So I'll definitely look into this in between now and the next meeting, which is being voted on. So actually, let me write that down so I don't forget. Yeah, we will have to contact their website themselves, because North Carolina is not listed here. But they do have a pretty easy contact form. Right here. So I'm going to open that. Okay, sorry for the dead air there. So those are going to kind of be our next steps there. I need to make sure that I'm doing it in the most legal way possible so that no individual member gets in trouble. And also so the organization as a whole doesn't get in trouble. But we do have way more time now than we did before to kind of fix things. But yeah, that's the biggest hurdle right now is that legal counsel. Other than that, it would be nice to find an accountant who would also work pro bono, but I don't. The lawyers generally get kickbacks for doing pro bono work. It's like a tax credit for them specifically. I don't know if accountants do. So I figured since it's tax season, it might be an easier time to get a hold of an accountant for a more affordable rate, but that's part of why I want to kind of get started there. Are there any other kind of ideas or anything like that for incorporation?
So until you get an EIN, could you not set up like a Venmo to potentially receive funds, or how, like, yeah, I guess I just don't understand how that would, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, I don't know how legal that is, but like we could, but I don't know how legal it is, you know? Because originally when we started this, we were like, let's just make a PayPal and like figure it out. And then it occurred to Olivia and I like, oh no, that's not legal. We can't do that. And that's mostly because it became so big. So if we're going to continue to have a roster of over like 100 people internationally, that's also a really big thing because it's going to be more visible, whatever we do. And I think it's important for us to kind of try to find the most legal way to do it. But I've also several times been severely tempted to just be like, let's just open a Venmo and figure it out from there. Yeah, so that's another thing I want to talk to a lawyer about. So maybe if we can find somebody or an accountant, I guess. Maybe that's an accountant that I would need to talk to. I'm going to ask Connie because I think that might be more accountant territory. I think. I'm not sure. I do know a couple of nonprofit art organizations in North Carolina.
Yeah, ask them. I bet they'd be happy to give you or give us insight about the process, you know, because that's
a good point.
We gotta share with each other. This is not, you know, information that is easily acquired, and we don't want to get in trouble, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
yeah, me too. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
yeah. I was also thinking we might also ask Chelsea this because they do have a degree in nonprofit management and they might be able to tell us like what the legality of certain initial steps would be, because it would be great if we could just go straight to having that fund and then wait for the bank account, you know, paperwork to go through and then just deposit it. But I will definitely ask other nonprofits in the area because there are several around here that I've also been bookmarking, like federal level, state level, and a couple other like more regional grants that we can apply for. So that's another thing if y'all could keep your eyes out for. The big thing, this is gonna sound like I'm being negative, but I'm not. There was a big upsurge in things that were available when we first started the guild, and that stuff has kind of evaporated over time because I don't want to say that the issues at hand at that point, like, you know, inherent racism and the structure of a lot of organizations. I'm not trying to say that that's not in the foreground of everyone's lives anymore, but it does seem like the funding for it is definitely de-escalating as as we get farther and farther away from George Floyd's death. So that's, you know, kind of disappointing. But there are still a couple of, you know, organizations that already existed that were designed to support organizations like this. And then I might also try and go out of the art field itself, because this is actually a nonprofit, technically founded by two Black women. I'm also Hispanic. I hate that I would have to, like, I hate using the, you know, but also that's ways that we can get funding. So yeah, so that's also something I've been looking into. If anybody notices anything else kind of popping up, that would be really great. I'd appreciate it. Just send it my way, either on Discord or through the email, or as long as there's a paper trail, I'll probably see it. So yeah, I think that's it. I'm sorry, I'm kind of petering out on this. I bummed myself out, but you know, other than that, I think that's pretty much it for Incorporation. We're kind of barreling in that direction, hoping to get to the point where we're fiscally legitimate. And then I guess the next group is design. So I mentioned earlier, like, I've seen that Stephanie is putting together a design meeting. So at that, I think they're planning on talking a lot about the schedule that I sent them. There are a couple of things that they're behind on. So Kay and I may need to make a couple of graphics for Instagram. But the major one for us right now is, like, we really need to get that public event graphic done. So we'll have to emphasize that a little bit more as time goes on. And then they do already have those deadlines on Discord, and feel free to look at those as well and add anything. That is where Stephanie asked me to put any kind of deadline, so I assume that kind of extends to everybody else as well. If you think of anything for YouTube or mailing, or I think those are the only other two teams that I'm not, you know, involved in that at that level, just let me know. Let them know through Discord and give them, like, a general time frame in which you'd like it to be done. So there's that. And then as far as the progress on PCs, or sorry, no, I went directly into the specifics. Is there anything else for design before we move on from that, Olivia? Sorry.
Not that I have, no.
Okay, cool. Then for YouTube, I know, Ruben, you mentioned that the last thing you needed to do was just kind of check in with your team, see where they were at, what their progress was.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of ended up getting from Alyssa was, I think, like, the semester for Alyssa is kind of like kicking in. And so, and I think, is Alyssa undergrad? I can't remember. I think I was very surprised because I think I saw something about looking at graduate school or something. I can't remember. But so I had kind of an appreciation for, I think, like, how busy and how much was probably on Alyssa's plate. So I think I would like to get kind of either like 1 or 2 brand new volunteers, I think, because I haven't really heard from Simon or Haley at all. And so I think, like, it might just be time to, like, get some new people in. But, you know, I think a lot of our captions have been kind of doing all right. And there's at least, like, something there because we've been able to get the transcripts on everything. I think that one that we didn't have the transcript for, that has been fixed to my, I believe that was done to my knowledge. I know before we originally had wanted Lee to do it, Lee Callback, but Lee has given birth. So she gave birth to Frederick. He's a cutie. He has so much hair. Cool. I see you, Olivia. Thank you for that. I think really it's mainly just an auditing thing. It's just going through and doing like kind of quick audits to the transcripts. And so what I've been doing is putting them into Drive. And Haley was kind of liking working from the actual files themselves, whereas Alyssa liked working in YouTube. So it's kind of giving them both those options. And I think I'll still kind of do that. I think that's a good workflow to have up, is basically to have those up for the time being. And then as they get kind of done, delete them. So that way it doesn't clog up our Drive. Because I know we don't have, I'm used to my school account where I have like infinite storage. And I know that's not the case for us. So, but that's kind of how I have that set up right now. So in Drive, there's a YouTube YouTube folder where I will be uploading like another folder to like the specific meeting. And then it'll have the .vtt form, and then it won't have the MP4, but you'll be able to watch the video on YouTube at least. So at least has the like transcripts on there. So. Cool. Olivia, what would be the best way to kind of keep you in the loop about that information?
If it's short bursts of information or like things that don't need like paragraphs, you can just text me it. If it is something that's a bit more involved, just feel free to email me, but then maybe send me a text, be like, hey, I sent you an email, go check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, so just let me know. Cause I was comfortable with working inside of YouTube and just like typing in as it went through and typing everything in. So I can take over that aspect of it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I remember trying to do transcripts. So I got you.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty good about getting them uploaded really quickly. Like if anything, I'll try to get this video uploaded tonight. Because I've noticed that they've been coming in rather quickly. So if anything, it'll be tonight or tomorrow when it'll be available. I was thinking though, every time I kind of go on to the playlist section, I'm wondering if we should divide up the playlists more and create more, just like a little bit more variety, like what types of meetings that we're having, right? So we've got like the initial like interest meeting, right? But then we've got the variety of like volunteer meetings regarding to incorporation, interim board meetings. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, is dividing up the interim board and incorporation meetings. Does that seem like something that would be useful to do on our channel? Okay. I see Kay shaking their head. Cool. Thanks, Olivia. And Olivia, like that point that you kind of bring up again, like just reiterating like the way of asking things, like that might just need to be kind of more on me about like my own leadership and like the way that I reach out to people, like just kind of being a little more succinct in what I'm asking for. So that's something to probably keep in mind a little bit for me as well.
I think everyone is in that kind of boat. Because it's easy to be like, well, this is how I function. Everyone functions like this probably. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm probably the worst for that because I'm a phone call person, which is awful for everyone.
Yeah, my students tell me all the time that I'm like very intense. They're like, it's good. They're like, we like it, but you're just very intense. And like, you get us in place. And I'm like, I know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I think one thing that we will probably have to do is just, yeah, thank you for being here.
Real quick, is there anything you wanted to say before you left or I wanted to ask?
Yeah.
Because we've been talking for a really long time, Jennifer.
Whoa, this is a lot of information. Like I went through like the whole organization within an hour and change, which is really commendable. I think going forward, just from my own experience, I guess just think like what's the main thing that you want to do instead of trying to bite off everything with just the four of y'all. I think you just need to focus on just one thing And then once you get that 501(c), then from there, you know, you could figure out, okay, committees and membership and benefits and, you know, what do you want the world to know about, you know, who we are. So I just think focus on one thing at a time, because it's a lot going on. Everyone, you know, has work and art making and trying to pull this organization together. So I don't think y'all know it, but you're doing more than what you think you're doing, even though it might not seem like it. But just, I don't want you to get burnt out, and just like do one thing at a time, one thing at a time. And if you do that and focus on work on that one thing together, then I think there's nothing but going.
I really appreciated hearing that, Jennifer. That's always a good reminder.
Yeah, and it was very good to hear that, because it does, often we're like, okay, but what's next? What's next? And you're very right. We do need to focus on the integral core of, okay, but what's the big picture?
Made me emotional over here.
Oh,
That was great. Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
going to sit with me.
We really appreciate it. Sorry. I got affectionately attacked by my dog, and he started spinning my chair around. So yes, thank you. I think one thing that we might want to talk about as far as the way that those playlists are going to help is it's going to set up a really good foundation for us, you know, as we start slowly progressing towards doing more and more things. So that was all I really wanted to say about that. And then I know I left the how-to video for Discord on here, but also if Discord's not working, that might be something that we want to reassess, you know, maybe that's just a community platform. So that's something to kind of kick around in our minds as well. I don't know.
While we're still on YouTube, and then playlist specifically, do we want to, keeping in mind what Jennifer just said about not trying to bite off more than we can chew and thinking about what's next always, but I know we had mentioned demos before, and I was wondering when would be a good time to like start thinking about that, start reaching out to people, recording some things, maybe like when do you think would be a good timeline for that? Because I know as an educator right now, it's nice to have extra resources for your students, because there's like multiple ways of learning, right? And maybe the way I teach something isn't conducive for somebody. So a way like one of maybe like the way Ruben goes about it will like click for a student more or something like that. So and that's not something we have to do right now, but I wanted to pose it again, because I think in this digital space and trying to navigate class, like the classroom as well, like maybe that's something we should put some effort towards.
Yeah, and I was
if you'll
wondering,
agree.
I do agree. I do completely agree. And I'm wondering, like, does it need to be, it'd just be like us recycling stuff that we've already kind of been using? Like I have a monotype monoprint demo that I did with my community college. It was like the only one that I professionally filmed, and I haven't done another since because it took me hours, but it was really good. And they said they really liked it. It's like a 30-minute long demo, and it goes over hand printing it as well. So like,
I think that'd be perfect, honestly.
I wouldn't mind giving it to you all to use. I don't feel, you know, I don't kind of have the privacy thing with like my teaching and all that. I know some other educators really are super passionate about, you know, not sharing what they do for their classes beyond just the students. But, you know, I wouldn't mind doing that one.
I also wonder if we could reach out to people potentially. Maybe this is something we wait until we have some funds to maybe pay them for their videos. Because I know Dilita posted like wood litho, which I've never ever seen on Instagram. And so I'm like, would she be willing to maybe like let us post that to our Instagram? And like obviously we would tag her and like and give her credit for the video, and we give everyone who posted a video credit if they so wish. But I just thought like it would be so nice to have like, and it could be even framing. I know like we were asking Aaron Coleman at our school if he could give us a framing demo, but he's just so slammed being like the only Black professor and everyone wanting a piece of him. So like he could really do that for us. So like things, yeah, they were even additioning, like it could be as simple as that. I think that might be really helpful.
Yeah,
Like-
I've got a framing demo that I could provide. It's not like a professionally filmed one, but it was one that I recorded for my professional practice class. And I'd be happy to share that as well.
And I don't even think it needs to be, so long as it's like 720 and above, I feel like it could be recorded on like someone's iPhone for all I care. It doesn't have to be like, because like it's print at every entry point, right? So like maybe a student has a demo that they want to post, but it was like filmed on their iPhone or their like Samsung SG or something. I feel like that would be, I wouldn't mind watching a demo like that and like either.
Well, and I think too, one thing that and sorry, Kay, I'll definitely pivot over to you. Yeah, International Print Center did the printmaking video contest, like what Jennifer said. And one thing I saw Serena, and I don't know if I'm going to say her last name right, but Perone, she teaches at Georgia State University, printmaking there. She made like a YouTube playlist of like other public demo videos. So it was like a kind of one-stop shop. Like you would go to her account, but they weren't her original videos. They were just ones that were already public on YouTube. So that could be another route that we explore. Oh yeah, Camilla Taylor.
I wanted
Yeah.
to pose like, I think that, okay, I have a lot of thoughts right now. One of them, sorry, one of them is that like, we're all educators and we may not have time, but some of us might. I could definitely put together some videos. Like I really want to make sure we're like also utilizing our skill set, because I don't mind not being paid right now. Like I'm an interim board member. I feel like it's part of my service. So like, and I don't apply that to everyone else. It's just my own brain thinking things, and that's how I feel about myself. But I don't want anyone to get the sense that we're like trying to, you know, not compensate them for their content or, you know, whatever. So I just want to, I know that we're going to be like careful about it, but like we can, the five of us can also put forth whatever we're able to. I think it's awesome that several of us are teaching. I am personally not teaching right now, but I do have time at my job to like put together videos, and I can, I'm just saying like there are other ways to generate content than you know, looking to other people and trying to, I just don't want people to like perceive it as like we're trying to like be involved in something that we actually didn't contribute to at all. There's so many just like weird nuances with that, and I just want to put that out there. It's like I'm happy to like also put things forward that way.
Yeah, that was also my kind of concern. That, and also the amount of time that we're going to be able to put into doing this. Because once it gets to like sourcing with people, it becomes a lot more, I don't know how to say it, but there's a lot more bureaucracy involved, and that stuff takes time. And so it's a matter of like saying, okay, what exactly do we mean by us uploading your video? Where are we going to upload it? How long are we going to upload it for? Is it a permanent upload? If it is a permanent upload, how would we compensate you? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a little bit too much detail work that we're not set up for there, but I am really excited about this idea and I'm into it, and I'm glad that y'all are excited, but I do think we might want to focus first on the public events that we're going to have and then go from there. If, however, because we also had already mentioned, I can't remember exactly what it was we were just talking about, but it was the book list. Right. That's another thing that is literally based on sharing resources. That's something that we could do a little bit more publicly, a little bit more collaboratively. and would also help us gauge the interest in that level of resource sharing before we kind of invest in that higher level of time investment. Does that make sense? So that's my only concern, is that we wouldn't be able to really invest as much time in something as nuanced as video collection at this point. But it would be a lot easier for us to have something more like a Google spreadsheet or something like that. That's what I've seen most people create these kinds of things on, that shares those kinds of book recommendations. So
Yeah, and I do want to say, oh, go ahead.
So Kay said, we have shared videos from stories made by members in the past with their permission. So it could be something we start a highlight with on Instagram, so that members, or so that others can still access them easily.
Yeah, and what I was suggesting wasn't like saying us filming new videos or anything, just like anything we had in our archives that we felt like sharing. So kind of in the same vein as the books, like just whatever we had or we've used in classes before. And yeah, I'm absolutely about using our videos ourselves as well. I'm personally not teaching printmaking this semester, so I don't have the demo videos I have wouldn't really lend them. It's like how to mix paint and color theory, which I mean, I could do that with ink potentially as well. But yeah, that's all I meant with like asking other people, I guess, because like I don't personally have any right now. But I also think all the points brought up are valid.
Jennifer brings up, and I'm just going to read Jennifer's comment, maybe a partnership with people like Speedball, Flexicut, McLean's to give rewards for people who give a demo, but make a contest to get students, and then maybe focus on professionals in the field. And to kind of add to that, something I was also thinking about too was our own partnership, like thinking about our own set of skills that we have. And if somebody wanted to make a demo that they were like, I feel really confident in this, but like, I don't know how to edit a video. Well, I know how to edit a video, and I can lend that skill to you as well. And I know it can be really daunting to like put together an entire demo by yourself. Like when you are like the director, the producer, the filmer, the like set design, lighting, all that stuff, it can be like really exhausting, especially if you don't have like some kind of help. So even if I'm like remote in some kind of way, like offering some kind of remote help, that's something that I would like to also contribute as well. So even, yeah, if it was just like editing your video down a little bit, or like brainstorming with people.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just think it's a later idea, especially if we start getting into like partnerships, because those involve contracts. And that gets I'm very with that, because we don't 100% have even our own kind of operating contract figured out. Yeah, definitely after Bible and 3G.
Yes. Yeah.
But one other thing I would like to say, just to have it said, is Jennifer did mention kind of separating professionals and students. I'm not particularly a fan of that separation. I do know that it definitely caused contention at a lot of not to name names, but SGCI conferences as well as other conferences, to have a kind of level of separation. So I'm a little bit about that. And of course, because that might alienate further people, because how do you define a professional versus a student versus, am I a student in accounting, but I'm not, a professional printmaker, that kind of stuff. It's really kind of, to be honest with you, it's usually art education that becomes the like, where am I in that kind of division? So I do think that might be something we need to reconsider the language of. But I don't think any of these are bad ideas. I just definitely think that they are after incorporation fully kinds of ideas. Whereas something a little bit smaller scale, like crowdfunding, I don't know why I'm harping on this specific idea. I guess we brought it up today, but the crowdfunding book resources might be somewhere where we would start and then move to that kind of level. But definitely keeping that in mind. I mean, I doubt that anybody's just going to be like, let me delete this video that I spent hours on, but keeping that in mind as something that we might actually start doing a little bit more in the future. I think that would be a really good idea, using the things we already have. So that's really exciting. But I would like to kind of redirect us to where we were at with YouTube. As far as the how-to video for Discord, did we still want to do that at all? Or is that something that we'd like to de-emphasize?
I mean, my initial thought with it was to make it a very short, very quick informational video. And maybe something like that already exists on YouTube as well. Like, I also don't want to make something that if it's already out there, like, might as well just go ahead and use what's already out there. Because the thing I'm thinking of is like a quick, like, between 2 and 5 minute, like, this is our Discord. This is like how you can utilize it. And this is, you know, this and that and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. I'm just wondering if we're on the fence about using Discord in the future. That might be something that we don't do. I don't know, just because it's an investment of time in a very specific direction that may not be the direction that we're continuing in, you know? So maybe we shelf that for a little bit. I will say we do have more people, as I've kind of continually left that invitation in the Discord, to the Discord in the newsletter. Steadily every week we've gotten at least one person jumping into the Discord. They're not necessarily introducing themselves every time, but there is still some kind of feeling of community. I do think the community itself has kind of slowed down, but I also have realized like a lot of the people who are on Discord are our students and they are busy. But it has also been very advantageous in the past. Like when I said, oh, we don't have any Meet Our Members, and Ed went, oh, wait, I could do it. You know, that was really nice to have that immediate response. So I think maybe that's just something to think more on. If you'd like to go ahead and do it, I think that would be fine too. It's just a matter of, you know, if that feels like a weird direction to put your energy in for you. You know,
I personally don't see harm in doing it right now, since we are using it at the moment. And then, because I mean, I don't know if it's really not working for people. I know we just kind of posed that today. And I did notice that there seemed to be like you said, at least one person each week joining it. So it might not be an issue. So I say just go ahead and like I think Ruben said, there might be a video out there already, so it might not actually be that much work. And I think if we don't, so I'm trying to get in my thoughts. If we don't give them a how-to, that might make it inevitable that we don't end up using Discord because people are like confused on how to use it. So if we give them the resources on how to use it and people like it, then I think it'll be fine to be a platform that we keep using. I feel like I just talked in a circle, but hopefully my point came across.
I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure. And I just commented it, but I'll also say it out loud. I think one thing we could focus on is specifically the way that we use Discord, because there are a ton of functions to Discord that we don't use for the sake of trying to keep it simple. But the reason it's really complex for us, as you know, interim board members, is we have to check all of the channels and all of the categories to stay up on specific things, you know. Whereas like a community member, they have the option to literally only ever check the pet photos section, you know, and that would be fine. Or the introduction section or something like that. So for them, it's more like if you just want to be a casual, you know, member, but then also it helps people who want to look into volunteering, we could always say, hey, and then this is how we coordinate our volunteers. In some cases, that is how we're doing it, you know. So I don't know. Maybe as long as you don't feel pressure to do something that you don't agree with, Ruben, I think it would be great, but also, you know, kind of shifting the focus of it from what is Discord more to how do we use it.
Yeah. No, it's still something that I'm thinking about, and it's not something I've necessarily like shied away from. So yeah, I think the way you kind of post it, the way that we use it, would be useful. So.
Neat. All right. So is that everything for YouTube other than like potential future things? Which, yes, okay. Sorry, I wanted to go back into it, but we need to talk about social event planning now.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a bigger conversation. So I haven't got a whole lot of responses from the community on like what they want to do. As far as the event goes, I've had people who are like, yeah, I like the idea of a demo. No one's been opposed to the idea of like a demo and like a hangout in the studio kind of session, you know. And then also let me check the Discord again to make sure I'm not explaining this poorly. I had a brief conversation with a member about, there it is. I made a channel for ideas and had a brief discussion with Randy about like a printmaking themed scavenger hunt or like a trivia game. And then over the phone, because we're friends in real life, you know, Olivia and I mentioned maybe doing, I think it was Jeopardy, right? And then different kinds of games like that. The only thing is we're going to have to think about how we can digitize whatever it is that we do. And so for Jeopardy, we already kind of know. For the trivia as well, it would kind of be like, okay, is everybody doing trivia together, or do we do like printmaking bingo, or, you know, how are we going to divide teams up, that kind of stuff. Would we need people to register beforehand, all that kind of stuff. But those are things to have kind of working in the back of your mind. Swan legs, right? And Jennifer just shared a Print Austin event, which was a demo workshop thing, and there's an event list for it. But as far as the idea, the demo night specifically, which is I think what we were hoping to do first, there hasn't really been any input from the community. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to do it. I do think you're more likely to hear if someone doesn't like an idea than you are to hear if they do. But it is something that we want to kind of think about. So as far as getting this scheduled out, we can maybe model some of this after the way that Print Austin did some of their things. I just opened their screen printing event from this link. They had a whole conference. We're only having one event. So essentially we would need to really figure out how to clarify that. Like, this is not a conference, it's a singular event, but at the same time, you know, we're trying to do things together. And I don't hate the word craft night because there's nothing wrong with craft, but it's kind of a craft night, you know, where we all make something together and chit chat the whole way through.
I was gonna say,
but I think,
have you watched any Art Prof YouTube videos?
No, I don't think, no, I did. I watched one that you sent me, but I don't remember anything about it.
They're very long. They're very long, and they can be like a lot, but what was it? She just did one on trace monotypes, and it was like posed as like a YouTube live like print along. Like, she does like draw alongs where you can like draw with her, and then you share your stuff on the Discord later. And so this, I mean, like, that was one thing that she did, and it seemed like it went over like really well. So there was like kind of an active, like, they were on Zoom and then also on Discord, which is this is how I do my classes too. Like, I will like, here's the still life, like I'm drawing it and I want you to draw along with me. And then like, we're going to upload to the channel that we've got on Discord. And then we'll like look and talk about each other's stuff. So that was like one thing. Anyways, that was, she did a recent trace monotype one, and it was really good. I liked it a lot. And she did it with water soluble inks. She did it with Akua inks. And so everything that she does is like safe to do at home as well. So then Olivia's got her hand up, so.
I was just gonna say, maybe if we don't get enough feedback for the first one, we just open a like kind of an open studio in a sense, where like we'll just have a time slot where anyone could sign on and they can just work on whatever they need to work on with other people. So it's kind of like a virtual studio space, like, because I know for me personally, that's what I'm missing a lot. The like community aspect of working on something in a studio across from somebody else and like bouncing ideas off of people in the moment. And also that way it's just a space of, we don't have to figure out, well, what one thing are we going to do? What demo do we want to do that people can follow along with or something like that? They can bring whatever work they currently need to work on and do it. Because also sometimes accountability is a part of that too. Like, I really should make a print, but I don't want to. And who's going to check me because I live by myself? Whereas like, if we have just like maybe an hour of like open studio time where you can just sign on and talk to people while you print or while you draw or while you do something else, that might be nice for the first one at least. And then we can kind of get an idea of, well, what did you like? What didn't you like? And give us more time to think of a specific thing.
I think my one concern with that, because that is a good idea, and like for better or for worse, it does eliminate the need for us to compensate someone. But what my concern is like that it might feel vague. I don't know. That's my biggest thing is like, how would we market? I hate that phrase also but also how would we market that with clarity? You know, would we just say, I mean, I'm trying not to go into like jargon because like my brain is code switching really fast right now, but like, do we call it like a studio kickback? Because that to me, I 100% know what that means. Or like a studio kiki, I also know what that means. Slightly different tone, but I know what it would mean. Do we use informal language to make it clear that this is an informal event? Or like, how do we make the intention of it clear? That's my biggest concern, because we've also, I mean, we had that problem a little bit with Rise and Soul. We've had that problem a little bit with some other things. I think it's just like trying to figure out the tone to communicate the activity with, you know? And then there was a lot of other things said, so hold on, let me read them. Like an open studio kind of drop in. We need to solidify what we want to do for this first one. I kind of wonder about that too, like, because it is the first one, we might need to say expressly what this is. But I do like that idea. It does sound really nice to not be like a planned huge thing. And also to have this like, again, it's community building. That's literally the purpose of this entire thing. No, I'm not going to say my only because I already had a different concern. How would we moderate it? That's one thing. Like, how do we make sure that people aren't being awful to each other? Which we recently learned is there's a potential for that. I do like the idea of it being regular. I do like the idea of it being informal. It's just kind of thinking about like, how do we make it really clear exactly what it is, and is someone moderating it, or is it just adults in a room together? Because that's fine too, you know. We just got to really, really clarify it in all the promotional materials.
So I'm imagining maybe it could be something too where like we're presenting like what we do. Like not only are we like, because I'm thinking about what Olivia said for accountability, like being accountable for being like accountable to like go to the studio and then work, and then knowing like people are sort of like there, like watching you, or like you can kind of like share and communicate like what's going on. Like say, you know, each of us is like going to like a, you know, a print shop or a studio and doing like something. You know, maybe one person is like, you know, I'm in the print shop today and I'm printing my soft ground plates, and this is how I make my soft ground plates. This is an example of what they look like. Here's me like kind of working. This is how I print my plates, and yada yada. And then maybe like somebody else is like, so I'm actually not in a print shop today. I'm working. You know, we kind of rotate to like who wants to share. It could just be kind of like an open thing, like not. I don't know. It doesn't have to be like a super like set thing. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be like, yeah, definitely not like surveillance or anything like that. Yeah, like, but definitely like a sharing capacity. I have not seen any of the Manhattan Graphics Open Studios, and I did want to kind of ask Jennifer if you wouldn't mind like explaining what goes on with those. I'd be kind of curious to know what they do, because I know LaToya Hobbs just did one.
Yes. So basically, I have a 4-year-old. I'm losing it a little in the background, but basically, I just joined membership with them recently, and basically, an email goes out with a newsletter, and it states the current like things for the month, like online classes, etc. But in one of the emails, it was saying how people could sign up for a meetup, and you would get an email, inviting you to come to the meetup, and basically you can share your current projects, or it's just a time to bring artists together, like y'all are talking about. Like if you were in a studio, you'd be like, hey, I'm working on this, I'm working on this. But it's just like a formal invite for people who sign up to want to share what they're working on. So I think they call it like a meetup. It's not really like broadcasted on the site, it's for members. But if you're a member, then you get the email that says, here's the link, we're meeting up this date. I did 2 of them with Atlanta Printmaker Studio, maybe like earlier this year. And basically, they advertise on Instagram, hey, we're having, like I don't know what Atlanta Printmaker Studios calls it, but they advertised it. And then once you email them and say, I'm interested, then you would get the link. So it's not like they put the link broadcasting out there, but you can just ask.
Yeah, so it's not like an official registration or whatever you would call it at that point, but it's more of a like, there's at least that extra level of initiative that has to be taken, where it's like, no, I really do want to do this. And I like am a real person and want to ask you, instead of, just it being out in the space of the internet, if that makes sense. So I like that idea as well. It's less stressful. It also gives us more opportunities to clarify what it is, because for me specifically, if I don't know what something is, I don't do it, because I'm like, I don't know what they're going to want from me, and I have a very neurotypical brain or neuroatypical brain, and so whenever I enter a situation, I want to know exactly what's going to happen in that situation, so that I'm not giving an impression of me being like a crazy person. And so it does, like, the idea of not necessarily making it clear what it is, what the kind of time frame of it is, et cetera. I think that all still needs to happen, but I don't think that it necessarily needs to be very super specific. And it's fine if we don't have somebody moderating it. I just hope that if somebody chooses to behave poorly on that platform, it doesn't make people feel like that is somehow reflective of us, especially because we're literally brand new, tiny babies, and the behavior of keep anybody coming in might be perceived as the behavior of our members. So, especially because we don't have that strict of a membership requirement right now. So that's where my main concern is.
I was gonna say, I think some of that is like risks we're gonna have to take. Like, like we're never gonna know if our membership can, like, how they're gonna respond in these situations, how they're gonna react, unless we give them the space to do it. And it is a concern that it maybe will reflect poorly on us, but it is an organization that is what its members are. So I'm hoping that we haven't, because I mean, based off of how people reacted on Cam's post, people swooped in. I mean, yeah, we were part of those people, but other people swooped in his defense and trying to help gently call this other person in and educate them and all that. So I really do think, I have faith that they, and I know it's not necessarily you not having faith, it's just you being afraid, which is fair, but I think, and valid, but I think we're not going to know until we give them the space to do it.
Yeah. And I think too, like, how exciting could it be just for, like, if I wasn't, if I wasn't really feeling good about my community right now, or like, and there was this other community I was like super excited about, I feel like it would be really cool to just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is like what I've been making lately and whatnot, like super informal studio visit-esque type thing.
I think just to kind of go with what y'all are saying, like, I think from like a perspective, like community K through 12 eyes, but like in order for us to make a change and like understand like how it is to be respectable and understand that everyone's voices matter, is that you have to set community norms. right? And so if you think about the community norms of the organization, like what you will stand for, what, has to happen when you come to these spaces, when you invite people who you don't really know, but like, if you overstep that, then this isn't the place for you, right? It's not, you can't keep correcting people and then they keep doing the same thing, hey, this is what we all agreed to, and you said you did, but you didn't. So either you're going to learn and try to correct your problem. If you continue to do the same thing, and where people's feelings are getting hurt and people are being misread and things are miscommunicated, then it's not for you, right? And so I feel like setting community norms, if you come to this space to share your work, this is what's acceptable, this is what we stand for as an organization, and everybody's voices are heard, and record it. I mean, like, you don't have to be like policing people, like, we're all adults, right? But if you record it, and if they try to say, well, that's not what I meant, well, this is what it came off with, this is what it came off as when you responded this way, this is how the person felt, this is what it looks like, and they can't say anything because it's being recorded. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like we have to continue to model what we want to happen. And like you said, like, maybe we have a few members that model, hey, this is what it is. It doesn't have to be a presentation. It doesn't have to be a moderator. It's like when I went to the Atlanta Printmakers, it was informal. We were talking about like the weather and how we felt about COVID. Then we said, oh, these are my favorite tools. And it was Jamal Barber. It was Stephanie Smith, Vanessa from Texas, and some other people. But I mean, I was in Jersey, so everybody was like all in the South and like Texas, but we were everywhere. But, we came because I sent you the link. It's called Printmaker Relief Carvers. I forget the name of the thing, but like basically you came because you have a passion for relief carving, and that's why you're here, right? And so that was kind of the call for people to be interested in coming. I don't know if they still do it virtually. I'm thinking they probably do. But if you get a chance, reach out to Stephanie Smith, tell her you want to come, just send your link and just experience it, because I think print shops or organizations can learn from what we are all doing in different places in different ways. So I think don't give up on the idea. We have to continue to model. If we don't model, look at civil rights. You know what I mean? How much abuse they got, right? But they kept being a model. No, this is how we all have to be treated. This is what we're standing for. And so I feel like if we have that mentality, then I think change can come if we continue to be models and put ourselves out there as examples of how we want to be treated and how others should be treated together as one.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my concern was coming from this like desire to be protective, which is not necessarily, I hate to say not necessarily necessary, but it's also, it frustrates me when things like that happen in front of me. And so I think it's just a bleeding into my decision making that's happening right now, where I'm like, must protect. But yeah, looking at what you sent us too, because I opened both of them, their language is fairly informal too. So I think that also helps. So they describe it as like creating, sharing, and hanging out with other folks. So it's a little bit less, they're not giving it the like studio nights. Does that make sense? It's like we're hanging out, chill, So I do like that idea of kind of phrasing it that way. They also have in very large letters, these are free gatherings, no formal instruction, but we'll help you out. So I think that's also a good thing to do. And then with this one, they do have 3 people who, so my question is, you did mention Jamal Barber, Stephanie Smith, and then Jerusha Graham. Were they all there every time? Because it does say local relief artists such as, but I don't know if that, I'm wondering what their capacity was were they like kind of guiding it, or were they, I don't know how to phrase that, not guiding it, but it does say something about greeting. So I don't know what that meant. Were they just hosting the Zoom call, I guess?
Yeah. So basically Jamal wasn't there all the time. Stephanie Smith, she is the original, like I helped start that organization when they first started. And so she would always be there. Right. And so, and everybody can just pop in, as they had time for. They didn't have to come it's only third Thursday. So, you come whenever you want. It wasn't much guiding. We just was talking, and like people were carving and drawing and just having a good time. And it felt really relaxing. I had never met only person I knew was Stephanie. I never met Jamal. I talked to him, studio podcast, and I've seen him, but like, I felt like I knew them because it was so Southern. It was so Atlanta. It was so formal. It was so not formal. And that's why I felt comfortable. Like there was no guiding. There was no like, okay, we're gonna do, no, it wasn't none of that. It was just like talking as if you were in a studio and Becky, you next to me, you eating your croissant and doing your little etching, and I'm over here, and Ruben over here doing his litho over here on his stone, and he drinking his coffee, and he's talking about the weather. Like it just felt like a conversation. So think of it, just let go. These things happen, and I'm sad that happened onto the post. I don't know much about it, but I can talk to y'all later about what had happened. But we can't continue to just let these things happen, but we have to continue to show the positive way of print. And so I think try it out, and then you only can try it out and see and learn from it and then change it. And if it's not for you, you don't do anymore, but at least attempt to try what you want to envision to happen. If you never try it, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. And then Ruben also mentioned one of us should probably be there always anyway, because we have to host it. So that also makes sense. Okay. So I feel like I have more of a defined idea of what we were talking about. Sorry, it took me a while. My brain was just like, what? But it definitely helps to have these examples. So thank you very, very much, Jennifer, because that was really, really, really helpful for me to have that visual to see it written out. I think that is a really good idea, and that might actually be the best way for us to start these. And we all, as an interim board, have also discussed practicing each of these different kinds of events after interim board meetings whenever we have the time, just to see technical issues, because we did talk about initially having a demo night. That was the first thought that we had, but then it was okay, we have to figure out now the logistics of that. How do we do a demo that doesn't involve a ton of equipment, because a lot of people are locked out of their studios, et cetera, et cetera. So it became more complicated. But this one I think would be a little bit easier to do, because we essentially are doing it every time we have a meeting. And then, yeah, it would be a nice thing to repeat. And then also, Jennifer also mentioned we could record it. And I think that's also a good point, because it is a good idea for people to be like, no, this is a public place. It is part of, I hate to say public record, but it is, we're going to remember this, and yeah, I really do appreciate having you here, Jennifer, because that helps a lot for me to understand. Yeah, and let them know up front always. I think we're also going to put it on any of the invitations as well. It will be recorded, and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess most of what we're going to have to figure out now is what's already kind of listed out in the event that Jennifer sent us. So that's a lot of the stuff that was already on the, oh, before I actually move on, is that what we would all like to do for our first event, is just have that? I'd have to make sure it's an official thing, sorry.
Yes,
yeah, I'm getting...
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of contribute one thing. I mean, coming from a situation where we did actually have something at the Art Institute recently happen that was kind of messed up in a kind of group student setting, and something was said by, an artist of color actually, who was an elder, didn't realize what he was saying to a Black student. And it was one of those things where we didn't really set the precedent though from the very beginning. The committee involved in that didn't set the precedent, didn't kind of let it be known that hey, what you're, what you said wasn't okay, or this is what we expect, this is the conduct we expect from you, right? So we have to be the ones modeling it from the get-go, which I think is why it was really good with the Instagram post that we did sort of jump in as our page commenting to state, look, this was not okay. This is our expectations. This is what we want. And this is how it's going to be. If this doesn't align with you, then this is not the space for you. And so I think, yeah, and that's also the kind of the impetus for earlier when I was talking about incorporation and code of conduct, why that was so present on my mind, because I think getting that sort of written will kind of help us then further embody that even more. Because it's there, it's on paper. That was kind of the feeling that I was going for with that one. So yeah, I completely agree though. Like I think whoever comes in is like they're just gonna like no, and then like we just defend, you know, the page as it, or like the organization, the guild as it is.
I also think that us getting together is really important. Like bringing people from the guild in and spending time with each other is going to be really important. Like it's gonna start cultivating that community that we really want on Discord. It's going to do a lot for us, and I feel like sort of witnessing that comment and that exchange last week was really strange. It was like the first time that we had that happen, and I'm kind of like thinking about what Olivia was saying earlier about how you know, there's faith that folks are gonna do what's right and they're gonna speak up if they need to. And I think the more that all of us get together, we're gonna start building that culture, and we might not even have to like necessarily set like ground rules. It really is about just like modeling it. And we're not gonna know until, you know, until we all get together and do the event. So I am like behind this. I think it sounds really great. I'd rather it be informal. And I think part of what we need to be doing is what is our focus for this particular event? Is it a social event? Is it an educational event? You know, for me, it feels like we need social event right now, not educational necessarily. And if we're moving towards social, I'm absolutely going to like sign up to go to a couple of these other ones that other orgs are doing. I haven't been to one. I don't know how they're usually run, but experiencing it, I think, is really going to help us, you know, do one for our own organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, as a person, a very social person, just because, you know, but there have been like a couple of things that I've gone to through Zoom that are for different interests I have, that those were kind of where I was modeling a lot of this stuff. Like there are craft nights for one of the specific things that I do, because they do run a true crime podcast, but they also are both artists. So that's why they do that. But then they also have like movie nights. They also have all of these different things, you know? And I think that is a good way for us to rephrase it, is like, for us, art is work. It is our job. It is our school. It is something that we might want to break from. And that was kind of I already said this, but kind of my emphasis for like trivia or something fun like that to make it less formal. But I do think just even having an even more stripped down like interaction would be fine, better than fine. I do that during critiques too. I also will say to my students, yeah, that looks fine. And then I'm like, no, it looks good. I think it would be a good thing to do. But I think it's, Kay said, yeah, we don't have to be performing for people all the time. I also would really personally love an event where I don't have to look everybody in the eyes. That would really make my day, because that's not a thing that my brain likes to do. It takes a lot of effort and energy for me. So I do think that might be something that would be really enjoyable and a little bit more accessible as well. And then I think the original purpose of this, like if we go back to when we started, the idea of an event was for people to get to know us anyway, you know, and that's what's like a bunch of different things that have gone on. So I do think, like, for sure, let's go with this model, kind of pulling from the Thursday night at APS that Jennifer sent us. Let's start getting into we're a little bit past time. Is it okay if we continue going? It's 5:12.
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Yeah, I can be 15.
Yeah, if we could just go till 3:30.
Okay.
So I could do like 15 more minutes.
Okay. So some of these things have already been addressed through us going towards this kind of formatting. The main thing that we're going to need to settle is the schedule. So the date, the time frame, date, time frame, and then how we're going to promote it on social media, like our actual social media schedule. And then graphics, we'll need some kind of visual for Instagram. So for the majority of people who interact with us do exist. And then an announcement of some kind through the email. And then We aren't going to have registration, but we will have them. Are we thinking that we're going to go with that kind of model where they do have to contact us or like fill out like a real quick Google form, because then we can put it in our link, our bio on Instagram? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got to get
That's
the
what we'll
link
do.
from us.
Okay. So that'll have to be kind of figured out. And then the last part, payment and who will lead the event, we no longer have to be concerned about. It won't be structured that way. Bye, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Take
Really
care.
appreciated it. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I do think, you know, having something like that would be really great. The language that they're using here is really informal. Are we going to go with the informal language? I personally like that because it really signals what the event is, but okay.
Yeah.
So
Definitely
informal
informal.
language. Do we want to get, I don't know what phrase to use for this. Are we going to use words that I use frequently are things like kickback and kiki, but that might feel weird coming from an institution. So should we be a little bit more neutral with that language, I guess, the coded language?
You can just say
do know
meetup.
yeah, like a meetup, hangout, something a little more straight.
Generalized.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I
Okay.
agree. Yeah, I
Okay,
think just
cool.
keeping it kind of like simple and neutral, and then like when we're in there, like we can kind of let our personality shine a little bit more and be like, you know, this is the print kiki.
Yeah. Okay. And then, because the other thing is we did actually have something on our initial list of programming when we first talked about this idea that was called kickback and kikis, but it looks different from this, and that's why I wanted to check and see if that was the kind of language we were trying to use.
Can you
So
remind me what that was?
kickback and kiki was like a led conversation, basically, through Zoom that was recorded and then put up on YouTube. That was kind of the idea of it. So it's a very quick run through. But I can also, once Olivia is free, I can also give you a little bit more description of that. But that was basically what it was. It was fairly informal as well. Yeah.
It's kind of like a podcast interview
Yeah.
type situation.
Well, that's what I was thinking
kind of like-
Clubhouse could be potentially, where we would be like, because I just know there's like a lot that goes into a podcast, whereas like with Clubhouse, you can schedule a like room and you just can just start talking. People can come onto it and go in and out as they please. The only problem then would be like accessibility wise, like there's no room for a transcript in that space, but it could be something that we like record, like screen record, or something like that, and then we can transcribe later and put up somewhere else.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've been I'm not annoyed with you, Olivia, but I'm annoyed with it in general with Zoom, is that we can't just live caption, and it's making me really mad. And I keep trying to figure out like how we could afford to do it, and we definitely can't. And it's just super frustrating because everything that we do has to be experienced after the fact, and it's really frustrating for me because that doesn't feel like, especially with social events, it just doesn't feel inclusive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we'll have to like,
Program.
I'd like us to revisit that at some point, you know. Sorry, Kay, what did you say?
Is there another program other than Zoom that we can use? Like, we definitely don't have to use Zoom.
Skype, I have heard, does live captions, but then also Miranda uses Skype to record and has had a difficult time getting like actual transcripts out of it. So then it's like, okay, well, we might have a live caption, but then we don't have a transcript. So do
I
we,
heard Google,
you know?
Well,
Google one does.
Google Meet does, so we use Google Meet for KCAI. They have the live caption, but I don't know about transcript. I don't think they have the transcript, so it's kind of just like Skype. Hang on, let me look.
It's so wild, but that's the way that it is. So maybe that's something, we were going to reconvene in a little bit, like after we're done with this, to do a trial run already. Would that be something y'all would want to do, is try out Skype and then maybe Google next time to see if they do create a transcript that we can
I
find
only
somehow?
worry about accessibility to Skype in general. I mean, I know it's free, but like a lot of people already have Zoom for like work and classes, and I just worry about asking people to download yet another thing to participate might like hinder people showing up. That's my only concern with Skype specifically, because I know like some workplaces and schools are using Google. I also feel like it's kind of the same kind of issue. Like either we have transcripts or we have live. Although I guess live captioning would be the better option because we could just go back and get the like it'll be easier to transcribe instead of like having to listen to all of it.
Yeah, specifically for this event too.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's something we just do moving forward, is we do live events through one form and then meetings through Zoom. I don't know. It's ridiculous that we even have to do this. Like, sorry, I've been very frustrated about it recently. I was like looking into it on my own time, trying to figure out a way for us to make it work, and it was hard to find answers in the first place. And then when I did, like, there are a ton of people who don't know that Zoom does make a transcript, you know, and then it's just frustrating. I'm frustrated. But yeah, I think for this, we need live captions. So we'll have to find a way to do that is accessible. Because I agree with what you're saying, Olivia, like having somebody download an additional software to interact with us is going to be kind of annoying. And also we will be recording this like social event, but also we're not posting it anywhere, is what I'm understanding. I mean, that was Jennifer's suggestion. It's more just for like posterity, and also probably for us, because it will help us like figure out how is this working, what are things we could change, et cetera, et cetera. Google Meet has an add-on to transcribe for Chrome. So to create a transcription as well as the live caption.
So they already have live captions kind of built in, like you can just turn them on, but they don't have a transcribe option. So that add-on for Chrome would allow it to then transcribe. And then
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna open that.
That's more for like, I guess like after the facts. But one thing I will say in using Google Meet is it's okay. It's like not as, the image quality and connection quality is not as good as Zoom.
Yeah.
It works. And our whole school uses it. But, and I think because of that, I've got the like licensed one that has like more features added onto it. So I don't know if regular everyday Google Meet has it, but. Yeah, Olivia, I do kind of agree.
It might not then, because when I was looking into Google Meet, it wasn't letting me, like I couldn't find it, but I also might not have been looking in the right place. So that might be something we find out later. Maybe that's something we try today, is we just go straight to Google Meet and give that a go.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just hate the idea that an unknown portion of our membership is going to be like unable to attend or be part of the interactions that we're having because we can't figure out how to get live captions without paying a couple $100 just to get them, you know? It's a pickle.
Well, so we talked about doing a form, right? In order to express interest and if they wanted to attend. Could we include a section on that form that kind of, well, I mean, I don't know, like asking like, would you need live captioning? So that we knew going into it. Is that like an ethical thing to ask?
I mean, it is if we have something we can do about it. That's my biggest problem, is you know,
We don't.
yeah. Unless we do Skype, and even then it's like Skype quality is also not great for images. The last time I used it anyway. So
I mean, so I'm one of those people where like, if we find that there's someone at the event where they need closed captions, I will just type things out. Like I would be like happy to do that during like a 2-hour event or something like that. And just to see how it goes, like if we run into the issue where we do need that, like it's happening, you know, like I agree, like we shouldn't have to, no one should have like a barrier to the events, whether, and it sucks that like someone has to, you know, type it by hand, but that's an option. Like I would be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, I mean, it would be better to have the event and, you know, then just kind of like figure something out, you know, but I would hate for us to just like, for this to be a barrier for us, like just not even have the event period.
yeah, I mean, specifically Zoom does let you do live type transcripts or live type captions. They suck. It sucks doing them. That's what Olivia and I started the meetings doing. But I also would say, you know, if I don't know if we can give more than one person the ability to do them, but if we could, that would probably make it faster. I don't think we could before.
No, we had to like keep switching in and out, and in that time you're missing things. But also like, I consider myself a decently quick typer. I was missing things left, right, and sideways. So that was the end of my thought. I have no more to say.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
we
and
just
also,
get it done. Like we just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
let's give it a shot.
yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. I personally, I think that we need to be really upfront about what we're able to do, like what we're capable of doing, which is we don't have the money to pay for, you know, expensive equipment or expensive software that allows us to integrate it seamlessly. We could also poll off our followers and see, you know, what things they are aware of that other people are using. I think we just need to do like a little bit more research as well, just like on the ground talking to people. I'm like thinking of that right now, like a couple of people that I can ask and just to see like, hey, we got no money, how do we do this? And if we can't do any of that, then we just do it by hand. Like I would be happy to be just like typing things. I won't be able to like contribute very much to the conversation, but I'm like more than happy to just like type it out. And again, I know I just said a lot of things, but like just being really upfront about what we're able to do and why we're not able to do it in the way that maybe people are used to seeing, or the most like efficient and comfortable way. And then there was like one other thought that I had. I think that knowing that we will get it done, whatever that means, whether it's someone typing or we do research and find another avenue, I think that we should ask what people are going to need on the Google form. I'd like to know, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, especially if we give them that background, you know, because I think it is very important that we phrase it the way that we intend it, where like we are trying to figure out a way to do live captions and we have not figured it out yet. So one, do you have any advice? Because please. And then two, we will either have somebody dedicated to live captioning, you know, because that's the other thing is Olivia and I were both talking and captioning, and that was not helpful because we were trying to participate in a conversation with 100 or so people and also caption. And I think it might just be a better idea for one person to be dedicated to just the captioning. Does that sound kind of like what you're talking about, Kay? I want to make sure I'm not like deciding things for you.
Nailed it. Yeah, you're good. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Because I think that might be good.
Oh, sorry. I think this also necessitates the reason why I was like saying I think we should just all be there. Like we should just all be there, like all 5 of us. Because I mean, who else are the biggest cheerleaders of this group? You know, I mean, that's
my mom.
Well, get her in. Like, come on. Yeah, but like, you know, I think we should be there anyways, because like, you know, we'll definitely bring like, we'll bring the party.
So maybe can we make not like a doodle poll, but I don't know everybody's availability. I know that we're in 3 different time zones, and I know that several people are teaching at various times throughout the day. I know some of us have more open availability. So would it be okay if we gathered everyone's availability in one spot, made it like a visual so that we could see when, like who's available when? And I don't mean things that come up. I mean like your day-to-day, your week-to-week type thing, when you're like absolutely not available. And then from there, we can probably decide on a date. I assume it'll be within the next month. And yeah, because like I know that for some people, like a Thursday evening might not work, or maybe they can only meet on like a Saturday night or something. So I just want us to, before we decide on a date, we should know our availability so that us 5 can hopefully be there.
Yeah, and I do think it's a good idea for us to give ourselves a month. So when you say within a month, do you mean, because we're literally at the end of a month, so I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Is it going to be within March, or will it be in April, early April?
I think, let me think. I'm okay with March. I'm not teaching though. I know spring break is a huge concern for people. In April, I will be actively looking for houses to buy. So like that's another thing. I've also started like docent training. So like things might be different in April. I don't want to make it so far out that like lots of things change for us, but I also don't want to make it in the next like 2 weeks because that seems like way too fast, you know?
So why don't we shoot for, I've forgotten when breaks are. So I'm gonna say a date, like a week span, and then please tell me if that's not right. But the first week of April. Does that work?
That seems like that would work for me. Yeah, KCEI's is, or no, sorry, JCCC comes first. The community college comes first. Their last week before it's next week. So we go through next week and then it's spring break. And then the week after is KCI. So it's like 8th through like starting like March 8th through like whatever that week is. And then March 15th through whatever that week is. Cool. Thank you, Olivia.
Yes, thank you.
And okay, you also have to go as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do need to head out as soon as possible. Sorry, y'all.
That's okay.
That's okay.
That
we'll
probably, yeah. I think
pop
we
this
have
into
enough.
Discord maybe, and that'll be a way that we can keep going.
Yeah. And if it's fine with everyone, I'm just gonna like make a thing on Google Sheets with everybody's name and the days of the week, and you can just plop your availability in there, and that way we have it. Would that work for everyone?
Yep.
Yes, that's
Okay.
perfect.
All right, cool meeting. Good to see
Thank you.
y'all. Take
Thank
care.
you, Kay.
Good to see you too. Bye.
Bye.
So wait, are we coming back to this? Now I'm confused. I've confused myself. Are we coming back to practice whatever we were going to do still?
I don't know.
Okay, I guess we could stop recording then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we can just reach out in the group chat that we've got. So
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording now. Did we hit all of the agenda topics?
We didn't fully flesh out the public event, but also things really changed the format of it, so that's fine. And we now at least have a time frame.
Yeah, I think we have a really good, just to kind of recap, I think we do have a really good sort of foundation for it. I think it's kind of a good thing to kind of keep going, and we'll kind of continue to flesh it out.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Awesome.
cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop the meeting then.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.